Hi there, my name is Memo. This is my channel, Houseplantygoodness, and essentially it's a place where I like to geek out about my big passion. You might be able to see some of it behind me. It's tropical houseplant. And today is going to be a continuation of the plant review series about, and drum roll because I don't think, maybe I've done one review on this specific genus of plant. I'm reviewing Calathea. And I'm reviewing a Calathea that's been in my collection. I need to put it in the title. I'm doing my usual thing going, I don't know how long I've had this for. I would guesstimate about 2 or 3 years, but the title will have the actual one. I can check it on my plant care app. But yeah, this is one that I've had for a while. I did get it as a small plant, as I've mentioned before. The kind of successes that I've had with my Calatheas is when I get them from young, and I have done another video on all my kind of tips in terms of what's worked well for me for Calathea, and kind of spoiler, they're not as difficult as everybody says they are. They can be, but at least the stuff that I have done with them has made caring for them a bit easier. But yes, before we dive into any of the actual review, let's lay down some ground rules. So if you're one of the people that's joining again, welcome back. It's nice to have you as always. So you know the deal at this point. If you want to skip to your favorite section, please do so by choosing a chapter in the progress bar below. And if you are new and joining for the first time, this kind of ground rule section is predominantly going to be for you. And I will start this the way that I always do. There is no way for me to make reviewing this or any of the other plants in my collection unbiased. It is my biased review of my plant in my care, in my conditions, and whatever that might mean. And obviously, in terms of conditions, you can see I am in a conservatory. I'm growing in the UK, and all that that might entail, both in terms of cold, heat, humidity, lack of humidity in the summer, seasons, all of the above, basically. But yes, but I do encourage you, if you've got this plant, and I don't think this is a specific Calathea that a lot of people have, and I'm pretty sure it is a Calathea and not a Stromanthia or Tenanthia. I will correct myself, but I'm pretty sure this is a Calathea. It's part of the prayer plant family regardless. Yeah, if you do have this plant as well and you want to share your review on this specific one, because as I mentioned, this is not one that I see crop up very often, because this is the Beauty Star Calathea, not the White Star Calathea, because there is a White Star Calathea, which is slightly different. And I think they're all part of the same kind of Ornata species, potentially? Yeah, it's definitely not a genus. A genus is the Calathea side of things, but species possibly, might be hybrid, I guess. Don't know. I'm not that au fait when it comes to kind of my Marantaceae. But coming into background on this, and I'll lift it up again, and I think I'm probably just going to end up holding this plant for the majority of this review, just because it'll be easier for me to show you. I will bring it in for a bit of a close-up, so you should be able to see it there. Yes, there are crispy tips. Yes, there are sections that have been cut off. That is what the back sides of the leaves look like. Some of them have got the purpliness, some of them are a bit more green and faded, and there are good reasons for that. So the background on this plant was relatively uneventful. I got this from a plant store. I got it quite small and quite young, and I will add a picture here from my plant care app. And this was a plant, and I think I bought this as an experiment. I was just like, I'm not a huge fan of this plant. It's okay. It's a Calathea. I want to try something. And I think this was one of the plants that has moved with me 3 different houses now. But I've had this for quite a long time in my collection, actually. So I got this one year when I went away. I'm trying to remember what the experiment was. I can't remember what the experiment was, or kind of what the outcome of the experiment was either. But I remember something that I did was I went away on holiday and I got one of those, those greenhouses, those kind of flimsy, kind of plastic covered greenhouses. And I put a lot of my houseplants in there in a bathroom where the light wasn't that high, and I was away for 2 weeks, I think. And I'd watered everything thoroughly. I'd had wicking ropes and everything like that installed. Some of the plants did really well, and Dum Dum over here decided to zip up that entire greenhouse, which basically meant that most of these plants, without any ventilation or air circulation, and the heat that was happening in the summer when this was happening, meant that some of them fried, some of them turned to mush. There was definitely some fungal issues there. This was not one of the ones that was in that greenhouse. It was in that wider room, and I think this was like the family bathroom that I was using at that point in a rental property that I was staying at. And this was a plant that did well when everything else struggled. This I was expecting it to come back and it to be turned into nothing, essentially. It survived. And to be fair, that is a testament, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to do a review on this. This has got to be one of my hardiest Calathea, if not one of the longest standing Calatheas that I've still got. So that sells you something. And as I said, it is one that isn't as popular as the white stripe, I think, because the white stripe has a lot more white. This one would get that slight bit of pinstriping, and I'll see if I can bring up the leaf so you can see it, and hopefully it is focusing. You can see that creaminess that should be white, or actually in the right lighting conditions would be pink. So coming into speed of growth, this one, and this is an interesting one because I will say, unlike a lot of my Calatheas, this is a bit slower. I will caveat that and say this is 100% one of my feral plants. At some point it was underneath the table, it wasn't getting great light. And that was also what would cause a bit of the pinking that would happen on the white stripes rather than the kind of creaminess that would be there. It needed the higher light levels. It would dry out fully. I would water it. This actually again got forgotten because it's on a lower shelf and it's getting even less light now, but it's next to another Calathea and they seem to be doing okay, but I hadn't watered this for nearly 3 weeks after it moved into here, and it would have been fine in its old location in the old conservatory based on how warm this gets and quite how much light there is, even with it getting as low light as possible. It started doing the usual Calathea thing, which was the leaves were turning into cigars, and it was very much telling me that I need a drink. So I did do that. There was a bit more crispiness that happened on the roots and the tips of the leaves, but dealt with that, that's fine. But yeah, this is one of the slowest Calatheas I have got. Possibly maybe another reason why it's not as big as it could be. And again, it's just been my specific experience with this specific plant. It might be that it grows really fast. If you do own it and it grows really fast, do let us know down below. But yeah, it's grown a bit. I mean, it wasn't a huge plant when I got it. It was kind of a bit of a plug plant when I got it. So it's done well considering. But yeah, if I benchmark this the way that I normally would do, so if a golden pothos is in this space and it will give me 2 or 3 new leaves in the growing period in the summer, what would this do? Maybe a leaf or two in the growing period. In the winter, again, based on the low light levels that I was giving it, it was maybe giving me 1 leaf every month or 1 leaf every 2 months, if I was lucky. But coming in to ease propagation with this one, and like with most Calatheas, the easiest way that you can propagate these is by dividing the actual plant itself. It does get bushier, and you can see that it does have multiple growth points within the same pot. What you would do is you would just split it out. I have still found great success with most of my Calatheas in kind of a light, airy, aroid soil mix. And I'm trying to think now. I've got an amazing follower on Instagram, and one of the viewers of the channel as well, who is telling me that they do everything against the book when it comes to Calatheas, and their Calatheas couldn't be any happier. So they're in pots without drainage holes. They're, I think, in an aroid mix, so that's fine. It's getting a lot of light. I think it's against everything that everybody says do in order to keep them happy. And this individual showed me some pictures of their collection, and I was just like, yeah, it looks fantastic, and it just kind of spits in the face of what everybody else is saying of kind of going, yeah, do this and do this. And do whatever works for you, especially when it comes to Calatheas. don't just latch on to what all the experts say you should do. Find your own way, and I found that most people that have had good success with prayer plants and calatheas generally have just kind of like marched to the beat of their own drum, and it's worked out really well for them. But yeah, in terms of propagation, that is the main thing. You would just kind of divide it. As I said, I've had success with an chunky aroid mix. Will it grow a bit faster if it's from division when it's a bit more mature? Yes, I found, rather than dividing it when it's a bit more immature. But generally speaking, it will just do its thing, essentially. If you divide it, it will take a bit of time, especially this one that I found, for me at least, grows relatively slowly. It will do its thing. And I will say, it is quite impressive that it's got the title of Ornata in some of the names that I'm seeing for it, because the Ornata, the kind of standard Calathea Ornata, if I'm not mistaken, that is the pinstripe Calathea. For me and for a lot of other people, turns too crisp like that. I will say with that one, I did have it for nearly a year and a half to 2 years. It never really liked life. It didn't die. It didn't look great, and I got it. Not only did I get on Ornata at that point, I also got a rehab plant, as in like the plant that you see in the plant store going clearance because it's looking like it's about to die. It kind of got a bit better, but it still looked like it wanted to die a year and a half later, and eventually I just gave up on it. But which is surprising with me with this one because it's been okay. It hasn't had any of those traits, to be fair. So coming into availability, it's a Calathea, so it is generally available in terms of finding Calatheas in the market. As I did mention with this one, it wasn't one that I've seen come up often, or I've seen or since seen come up often in this format. And I think it's because there are other more flashy ones that people might be interested in, the White Star and the pinstripe itself, actually the Ornata itself, that people would probably gravitate towards more than this one. I also don't know, because I bought this as a small plug plant and it's taken a while and it's only ever gotten this big. I don't know if this is one of the more diminutive Calatheas, because the original plan, that was it. The experiment was that this was going to go into the terrarium that I had for the dart frogs. But by the time I planted everything else in, the Calathea itself, even at a plug plant size, was way too big, basically. So it never got used, but I never got rid of it or did anything else with it. So it just existed. But I don't know whether or not that's the reason that for me, it hasn't ever got particularly larger. I also don't know if that's maybe the reason why we don't see these as often. If this is meant to be a bit more of a diminutive one and this is the maximum size that it will kind of generally get to, possibly that be why, because a lot of the times those kind of terrarium size or kind of more diminutive plants don't get anywhere near as much spotlight as plants that can get huge and in large and in charge, essentially. So that might be it. But in terms of availability, if you find it and you like it, grab it, because you don't know when it might come up again. This is not one that you're going to have to search too much to find, I would imagine. If you're really like adamant that you want the actual Beauty Star and you did a Google search and you just kept checking on it on occasion, you would probably come across it. Somebody would eventually have it, at least here in the UK. I'm assuming this is something that comes out regularly-ish from the plant nurseries in the Netherlands, and you can grab it then. Pricing wise, I got, as I said, mine was a bit of a plug plant. I don't think it even broke the double digits. I think it was still very, very much so in the single digits, probably the lower single digits, because I got it as quite a small plant. Yeah, potentially. I got it from a garden centre and I don't even think it was £5. So that tells you something. But yeah, this is one that can be tricky to find, purely because, as I said, it's just not one that you see very often. There's other ones that are probably more showy that the plant stores will get in kind of over this one. So coming into pests for this one. And yeah, can you guess which one I'm going to say, seeing as it's a prayer plant? Spider mites. Spider mites love most Calatheas. This one specifically, and again, it's surprising because it's as feral as it was, um, hasn't had a huge amount of stress with spider mites. Spider mites have pretty much been the only thing that has ever been on it. I'm trying to look at it now, kind of going, is that or isn't it? No, I thought I might have seen some mealybugs, but I don't think I've ever had mealybugs on any of my Calatheas, actually. Specifically this one, as we're talking about this, I don't think I've ever had mealybugs on this, but yeah, spider mites are always going to be the thing. Have I ever had, I'm trying to see now, have I ever had any thrip damage on this? I don't think so. I'm also noticing spider mites as I'm saying this, because it wouldn't be a Calathea video if I didn't notice spider mites that I need to probably just deal with exceptionally quickly. Is that actually spider mites? Potentially. Potentially it's spider mites. They're moving very, very fast, which is impressive. I will see if I can get kind of close-ups of this and then kind of add it somewhere around here, but yeah, I need to treat this now. Feral. But coming into accessories and care for this one, no janky support sticks for this. As you can see, it's in a plastic nursery pot. It is in a chunky aroid soil mix because, as I mentioned, I found that most of my Calatheas do better in that. And actually, this is a good example of a lot of times my Calatheas, letting them go quite dry. Not bone dry generally to the point where they start curling, but just before that point, I found is kind of where they like to end up before they get watered again. Because a lot of the information online is you need to keep it evenly moist. Every time I've tried to do that with a Calathea, I have killed it due to overwatering. And it's impressive that you would assume that everybody would just like keep it as moist as possible. Yes, but at the same time, if you've ever taken a Calathea out of its kind of pot and out of its soil, you'll see that it's got little tubers. And generally speaking, when you see tubers like that in the root system, and their main roots are relatively chunky as well, granted the little hair-like roots, the secondary roots, aren't that substantial, but generally speaking, those are plants that, at least in my experience, they do quite well with storing water, so they're not quite as thirsty. If you think of things like begonias or even ferns, where they've got those hair-like structures for roots, those ones are ones that really cannot handle going fully dry. And actually, based on that, and I just look at the morphology of a plant, I might then change what I do with it, even if everybody else disagrees. And it's worked well for this and most of the other Calatheas that I've had in my care. But yeah, other than that, yes, I mean, I do have it in here and it does have slightly better humidity in here. Light levels, as I said, this is at best getting medium to low light, to be fair. So it's doing that. Would it like a slightly higher light level? Yes. Would I get some of the pinking on the stripe? Yes. Do I care? No. So yeah, it is what it is, but it's relatively straightforward in terms of the Calathea, in terms of its care. So coming into final thoughts for this one. And I will say, I'll start it off as I usually do. Knowing what I know now, if I didn't have this plant, would I get this? Yes and no. Yes, in terms of if I wanted to add more Calatheas into my collection, I would probably get this plant because it's been relatively problem-free for me. With the no element of this, it would be, do I want any more prayer plants or Calatheas in my collection? No. Purely because I think I've very heavily fallen out of love with them, and for the level of tiny bit of fussing that they need, I just cannot be bothered. They are good to fill in some spaces that are slightly darker, but for me, at least at this point in my kind of plant owning journey, I would much rather get some form of an epipremnum in there, or possibly even a begonia, or possibly even a fern over a calathea. That's just me. And I know that a lot of people don't necessarily agree with this. They are quite showy, but yeah, it's it's a no from me in that respect. But in terms of the specific Calathea, yes, I probably would. Now, in terms of a score from 0 being the worst, 10 being the best, where would I kind of rank this? Again, just judging it on the specificness of the Calathea and not me kind of poo-pooing it because I don't like Calatheas that much anymore. I would probably give this a solid 6 or a 7. It's an okay plant. Will it set your world on fire? Probably not. Is it interesting to look at? Yes. Are there more interesting Calatheas? Yes. Is it hardier than most, at least I found in my experience? Also yes. The undersides aren't anything to write home about, so it's kind of slightly above middle of the road. Middle of the road. Pronunciation and accents at this time in the morning. But yeah, I think that's what I wanted to say about this plant. Hopefully you've enjoyed. Let me know if you have actually got this plant, if what review you would give it and what score you would give it. And yeah, hope you have a great rest of your day and hopefully I shall see you here soon. Thanks. Bye.